Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. Unless you've been through it, it's hard to imagine what it would be like to lose a child to drowning in a family or a neighbor's pool. Our next guests have been through that and are trying to do something about it. Lisa McMullin and her son Birch are with us. Lisa's 22-month-old son and Birch's younger brother drowned at a family pool party more than 3 decades ago. Also with us, Emily Wujcik is Aquatics and Safety Coordinator at St. Louis University and is active with the National Drowning Prevention Alliance. Stephe McCormick heads a company called Backyard Lifeguards. That's an aquatic safety company. Thank you all so much for being with us. Nice to have you. Difficult subject to talk about. Lisa, I'll start with you. I know it's still painful after 30 years to have to relive this incident, but I think our audience wants to know what happened.
It is. It's nice to remember Nicholas, even in sad moments. And I feel very committed to telling the story because I think it is one that happens all too often. We had gone up to a place in the country for the weekend, an hour away, and then on Sunday invited other families to come up we invited them to come up for apple picking because it was September, but it was a warm September day, so kids went into the pool. And Nicholas got up from his nap. All the kids but one were out of the pool, and somehow he fell in. There were adults there. There were children there. But that's if there's not a designated person to watch, you can have a situation like that all too easily. And it happens very fast. It happens silently, almost invisibly. And so I feel very strongly about sharing that story in order to help other parents avoid that situation.
Birch, I've heard this story before about other children. It seems every season we hear a story like this or several stories like this.
Yeah, it like my mom said, it happens way too often. Drowning is actually the number one cause of accidental death for children 1 to 4, and that's above car accidents. It's actually about 25% higher than car accidents. So it's a real safety issue that unfortunately doesn't get the kind of attention that a lot of other issues do.
Steffi, what kind of options are out there for to avoid things like this?
Well, nationally, not that many. But here in St. Louis, I started this company following a drowning in Ladue. So in 2009, there was a residential pool drowning, and the word on the street as moms were talking as you'd go into the Starbucks or the rec center was, I can't believe those people didn't hire a lifeguard. Mm-hmm. And I've been employed by both a municipality and by a Y, and at no time would we ever consider sending a lifeguard to a private residence for a variety of very legitimate reasons. And so there was this gap here. There were people, conscientious homeowners who knew, hey, this is a situation where I should probably have someone help me with this, with providing dedicated supervision like Lisa referred to, but also there wasn't any avenue for them to get that service. And so we created options. We created a program and a service that has lifeguards who are qualified, insured, equipped, prepared to deal with a private location. And basically that's what we want homeowners to know, is that when you are operating your home pool as a community pool because you're hosting a party or you're having people over and parents and adults are distracted, that you need to provide some of the structure and order that exists in a community pool. And the gap is further exacerbated by the fact that residential pool owners don't go to community pools. They don't have to, so they don't sometimes know what those things are. So we try and educate at the same time as we supervise.
And the name of the organization is Backyard Lifeguards, correct?
Backyard Lifeguards.
Emily, But what about the person who is not having a party? When a youngster, a toddler, just slips out of the house and somehow manages to get into the pool, the backyard lifeguard's not going to be there under those conditions.
Right, and it's all about finding that balance and making sure that you do have some structure, as Steffi said, in place where, we try to create some barriers. Some of those might be pool fences. I think, we've all touched upon supervision is extremely important. Making sure that, that pool doesn't go unguarded. Just because we don't believe anyone is in there doesn't mean that no one can get in. So having some barriers, some supervision, making sure that you have things set in place. So if something does happen, you are able to respond. And making sure that, you're comfortable in doing that and knowing that hopefully you never have to have that happen. But if it does, that you're comfortable and able to do so.
Birch, I want to come back to you because I think you're probably the one to answer the question. And that is, it seems to me that the first line of defense is to teach even a toddler how to swim.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, yes and no. We don't actually teach the children that age to swim in the sort of the common understanding. The key for lessons is to teach them survival skills, and specifically how to roll over and float on their back. Because if they can do that, they can breathe and they can call for help. And sort of going back to a statement you just made to Emily, most drownings are not when a toddler sneaks out of the house and manages to get to the pool. It's actually where the parents have gone to the pool with the child, and maybe they just run inside to grab a soda or they get distracted on the phone. So they happen most of the time while there's supervision going on. And so if a child can roll over and float and call for help, most of the time a parent is then close enough to respond to that. And it buys them that extra time that can turn what could be a very dangerous situation into just a slightly scary one.
How long does it take to teach a youngster these skills?
We have, at that age, it can take a few months potentially to teach a really small child because obviously you're communicating mostly with muscle memory. But we have children under 1 year old who have learned how to float on their own. So it certainly can be done with very young children. And like we said, the stats are skewed towards those young children. So we want to get them started as quickly as possible to make sure that they have those skills so that if there is that just momentary lapse in supervision, that the child knows how to create a safe situation to buy the parent time to then go in and help them.
And you run something called the British Swim School,
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
And how does that work?
So we start with kids as young as 3 months old. We focus on, like I said, the survival skills first. Our founder, Rita Goldberg, was one of the pioneers of the back float approach. So we use very fun, gentle methods, small classes to help those children learn really critical safety skills. And then from there, we then teach them more of the traditional swimming once we know that they are able to keep themselves safe.
We're talking primarily about backyard swimming pools in this particular situation, but there are other pools as well. And Emily, I'll do this to you. What about municipal pools? I mean, you have a lot more people there, but a lot more distractions as well, and this is a problem in some municipal pools.
Absolutely. It's a problem wherever there's water. Yeah. So I know the municipalities do a great job at making sure that our pools are safe by their standards. So they do things as making sure that if we do require lifeguards, that the lifeguards are there, that we have a fence around the pool, that we have safety procedures set in place, such as a shepherd's hook to pull someone or give them that leash almost to hold on to bring them into safety. Could be also a ring buoy. But, it's about getting that supervision and making sure that water is safe. So even though there is a lifeguard, there are situations where at lifeguarded pools we do have children or even adults that do drown. It's a difficult situation, but we want to do everything that we can to prevent those.
Steffi, how are your lifeguards trained?
Well, many of our lifeguards come from municipal pools. And if I can add to that, there are responsibilities for visitors of municipal pools. I mean, lifeguards do an excellent job there, as well as our many state parks and lakes and beaches and other waterfront environments. But a lifeguard is not a babysitter. So when people come to a pool or any environment that has an attractive danger like water, it's important that people know the rules, and it's important that lifeguards make clear those expectations, that any parent who is bringing a child is within a step and a reach of that child, wearing a swimsuit in the water, engaged with that young person, so that the active supervision is provided by the parent. And then in addition, the lifeguard provides the order and the structure for the entire facility. To answer your question, our lifeguards are trained. They're trained by under the standards of the American Red Cross, so they're all American Red Cross certified lifeguards. Approximately half of our staff are also lifeguarding instructors. And then the United States Life Saving Association, which provides the nation's curriculum for non-pool, open water training, we follow their guidelines for the events that we do that are in mostly in this area of the country, lakefront environments. Because we do a number of adult events, open water swims and triathlons and things like that. So we have, we like to call our lifeguards Red Cross Plus, so that they're prepared for any pool or non-pool situation.
Lisa, where has your activism on this issue taken you, and how far have you come with it?
Well, when Nicholas died in 1982, Birch was 5 years old, and we had a 3.5-year-old and a 1-month-old. And moving forward in the face of that with 3 young children was all-absorbing. Mm-hmm. We have recently gotten re-involved because of Birch's involvement with British Swim School and my seeing what I thought was, what I think is, a wonderful program, and my conviction that if our Nicholas had had British Swim School, we'd still have it. Mm-hmm. So we are becoming re-engaged. We would love to, my husband just went to the National Drowning Prevention Alliance meeting a couple of months ago. We have joined a group called Parents United to Prevent Drowning. And I would love to see, as with the 4 of us, we have talked about this, some sort of coalition in the St. Louis region that would raise awareness. One of the statistics that came out of a report by an organization called Safe Kids asked parents what was their primary fear for their children's safety, and only 1% said drowning. That's despite those numbers, which are horrendous. So I would love to. It's been a gift to have Birch involved in this, and us then become re-involved. And I would love to raise awareness in the St. Louis area and have a drowning prevention coalition in this region.
Right. We have an email from Madeline in St. Louis. Writes this question. She has young children and writes, my neighbor just installed an above-ground pool, but there is no fence around it. Do I have any recourse to request that they put a fence around it? Seems to me the answer has got to be yes. Steffi?
Yes. Well, it depends on what county she lives in, but most places do require that any property with a pool has a fence around that pool. Now, the fence does not have to enclose the pool separate from the home that owns the pool. But yes, your neighbors do have every right to, you can contact your local health department, your zoning organization, and say, my neighbor's just installed a pool and there's no fence, and they'll get a visit.
17% of drownings occur in above-ground pools. 9% occur in those little inflatable pools. Mm-hmm. So people need to be aware that those are a real danger as well.
Emily, it seems to me this is another issue that has to be addressed, and that is we don't all have pools, and our neighbor or someone down the street might have the pool. And that can be called an attractive nuisance, I suppose, and an attraction in any case for young kids in the neighborhood. How do we deal with that part of the equation?
Absolutely. You know, I also want to bring Steffi into this, you know, as we talk about that supervision and getting some barriers in. It definitely is an attraction. It's a fun one. I think we all can think of hot summer day when we've enjoyed taking a nice cool dip in that pool. But making sure that, it is safe, having those barriers, having that fence up. If you are going to have people over, having a designated person to watch the pool when there's someone in it, and that person is not distracted, they are not inebriated in any way, whether that be with alcohol, maybe they are on even prescription medication that can inhibit their motor function, reaction time, even sight. So making sure that, all of those things are kind of wrapped in together. And if you are going to have a party, Steffi does a fantastic job with her backyard lifeguards, and they're a very wonderful and easy group to work with.
Bryce, what about devices? I mean, water wings, inner tubes, whatever, something's buoyant to keep a youngster from going under.
Yeah, absolutely. And Emily and Stephanie, you can probably talk about this a bit more as well, but our suggestion always to parents is that unless it's Coast Guard approved, you should not be using it as a safety device. So anything, as Emily likes to say, anything that can be inflated can be deflated. And kids have an amazing way of sneaking out of those kind of objects or rolling over, that sort of inner tube idea. Unfortunately, if they tip over it, then is holding them upside down. So you need to be very careful with those. And even with the Coast Guard approved life devices, the life jackets, the sort of puddle jumpers that are popular now, none of them are a substitute for the other elements of the safety regime. So lessons, supervision, safety devices, fences, all of them need to be taken together.
I don't know why I'm insisting on calling you Birch when your name is Bryce, but forgive me.
It is Birch.
It is Birch. See, I'm really confused now.
I was going to add that you were asking Emily, what do you do about the neighborhood pool? One of the things Birch's program does is every few weeks a survival week. They do it 3-4 times a year, and they drill into those kids' heads. You don't swim without an adult. So even if there's 2 doors down a pool, they shouldn't go without an adult.
That should all seem very obvious. We've been talking about pools, but there, as has been alluded to, I think by Emily, there are ponds, there are lakes, there are rivers, there are creeks, there's an ocean. How do we deal with that part of it? Let's take the pool out of the equation. Any good advice for people here?
One of the things that always strikes me is the number of drownings every year at Babbler State Park. Babbler State Park does not have lifeguards, and they have a ton of shoreline there. And the messaging that you get at Babbler State Park, which advertises on its website that swimming is allowed and charges you for parking, I believe, to go to the beach there, there's a big sign when you arrive. It says, "People die here. Don't be next." And it's so alarmist, the sign. And you look past the sign and you see people with their beach chairs and their beer hanging out. And it seems to be, you look at it and the thought psychologically is, well, they don't mean me. Those people look fine. Everybody's fine. And I think there needs to be, instead of something that's so extreme, something that's a little bit more educational. Install some safety and rescue poles at these locations if you're not going to have lifeguards, or provide some sort of safety education, whether it be in signage or personnel, to offer that information. Because yes, people, in residential pools and even in municipal pools, there's always some education that's available there, either by the homeowner or by the lifeguard that's on duty. When you go to a public space that is open and free, you're getting any individual, regardless, without knowledge of the exposure or the dangers to water. So they tend to be more dangerous. They draw in people without access to other more structured environments.
Education is the key, clearly.
Exactly. So education in terms of educating the adults that they need to have supervision in those scenarios, educating parents on CPR skills so that if there is an incident that they're prepared to give assistance, and then, of course, the swim lessons to try and avoid the situations happening in the first place. But a lot of education is the solution to those kind of situations.
And if I can add something
very
here.
Quickly, please.
Most drowning prevention agencies refer to something called layers of protection, and we've addressed all of them here. Preventing access to water, preparing for access to water, providing supervision, the availability of wearable flotation, Coast Guard approved flotation aids. So all of those things cooperate. It's not any one thing that's guaranteed to save a child. It's all of them together.
Right. We'll have to stop it right there. Something for all of us to think about this time of year. It is getting warmer, as we are noticing. Thank you so much, Lisa McMullin, for being with us. Birch McMullin, thank you. Finally got your name right. Sorry about that earlier. Stephe McCormick, thank you for being with us. And Emily Wujcik, thank you also for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank
Important
you.
subject.
Thank you.
Archived versions of past St. Louis On the Air programs are available for download or podcast at stlpublicradio.org/STL On Air. St. Louis On the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio 90.7 KWMU. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Don Marsh.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.